Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Will to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Will Jenkins, joined by my co host, Trent Marsh. Before we get into it, as always, I'll beg you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you can leave reviews and interact there, or you can yell at me on any social platform at the Will to Hunt. And we can continue any conversation there. This is episode 2, and today we're going to talk about turkey season, which is kicking off basically today in most places. And kind of kick off the discussion, Trent and I have tossed around the idea of like, why is turkey season so different from deer, or why is turkey hunting so different from some of the obsessive nature that you see with deer hunting?
And I don't know that I have a really good answer. Truthfully,
Yeah.
I mean it's a different kind of hunting, to be sure. And I think maybe part of the reason is because I think turkey hunting is sometimes seen as being easier,
Mm-hmm.
and not because of the sheer number of tags that are filled. Because if you look at turkey hunting licensing purchases versus the number of successful hunters, like it's not a big number. But
Right.
you never see somebody with a dead bird that's a tom. Now, you'll see Jake shaming from time to time, but you never see the should have let him go another year.
Yeah.
I needed another 3/4 inch on that beard, or
Yeah.
you don't have that kind of conversation around it. So it's more binary. I think that's a
Yeah.
big part of the driver. Is it's just, did you kill a turkey? If yes, you're a successful hunter.
Right. Yeah.
If no, you suck. Try again next
Right.
year.
Yeah.
So I think that drives a lot of the perception, just because you don't have grades of what it is. You might see a guy apologize for taking a Jake on the last day of the season just because he wanted to fill his tag, but nobody
Nobody
kills a
cares.
2-year-old bird and posts it and says, I know he's only a 2-year-old bird, but because
Yeah.
it's a turkey and you shot him in the face and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
I
I
think that
think the
drives a
only
lot of it.
thing that people will get on people about is uh and this isn't to downplay or shame turkey hunting with archery equipment, but there's people, and that happens in every type of hunting with archery equipment, is people that go out unprepared for the difficulty and they end up wounding stuff. So that's what the only thing I see get called out on turkey hunting, as it
Yeah.
likely should,
Right.
especially because you're just wounding a whole bunch of animals. um I've been fortunate to take a couple with a bow, and I I wounded one before I killed one. The one I wounded, I didn't wound it so much as I got rid of some feathers for it. But there's plenty of people that do wound and they post it on all social media platforms, and it's like, come on, if you're gonna, one, there's a small target area on a turkey to hit with a bow, and they're sketchy as heck. Like, they
Right.
don't sit still ever.
Right.
So it's not an easy shot, but that's about the only thing that I ever see get called out, is people that for some reason proudly document their the number of wounded birds they take
Right.
out each year.
And that's
But
that's not even something I have interest in. You know what I
yeah.
really like? Filling a tag and
Yeah.
shooting a bird in the face.
Well,
I have never had the desire to bow hunt turkeys. And I like bow hunting. I bow hunt deer, and what I just the desire to do it during turkey season with everything else going on. Nah, I'm
yeah.
good. Let's just shoot them.
Yeah, my first 2 birds were with a bow, a week apart each here in Wisconsin. I was hunting with a friend of mine on one of his leases, and it's just chock full of birds. I mean, we had 36 birds in the field the first morning by 8 o'clock. It's like, okay, this is stupid.
Right.
Because otherwise I was hunting public land. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, so there it was like, it was exciting and new, and it was what I wanted to try because I was really into bow hunting. But I but I did it from a blind. I don't know that I have a ton of interest in killing a bird with a bow without a blind at this
Right.
point. Doesn't mean I won't ever have that interest. I'm kind of over it because I'm just really excited to hunt birds without a blind in general.
Right.
And the only way I can see myself being remotely successful, especially on public land right now, is with a shotgun.
Right.
So that's what I'll be doing, is running around in a leafy jacket with a shotgun, hoping for the best on public land.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, yeah. I got one 2 years ago. I didn't get one last year. Um, and
And
actually
I don't
dedicated a lot of time last year. But
I don't know what the bird populations are like up there in your area. Indiana is still, especially the northern half, is still, I kind of call it a Swiss cheese population.
oh yeah,
You've got properties where you could kill 3 birds in Indiana and not make a dent, and you go 2 miles down the road and you could sit there for a month of Sundays and call
yeah,
and never hear the first gobble. And in really small areas, you've got that much variance. It's when I was growing up, you never saw wild turkeys, like flat
oh
period
yeah,
ever. You didn't even have a turkey season. It's not like the South where it's kind of just always been there. So we're still recovering in a lot of ways. The populations in the area, and it's kind of a bonus if where you hunt has a good population of huntable birds, because like I said, I'm in the northeast corner and there's a lot of properties with birds, but there's a lot of guys that don't hunt them because they're the 20, 40, 80 acres that they have just isn't holding birds. So
yeah.
I think at least in this area, that's kind of part of it too, is it's not something everybody can hunt. And generally the people that are spending time to turkey hunt are doing so because they have access to properties that have
Yeah.
birds. So they ultimately kill birds. And then you just have a lot more of those prospectors that maybe they're trying public ground, or they're on marginal ground, but they're not expecting much, but they've been inside all winter. So they want to go out and try. And
Yeah.
it's not something people get as revved up about. I mean, I enjoy it and it's fun, but it's, even from the content side, it's something that is, as we look at the content side of it, it's one of those deals where people care about turkey content for like the month before their turkey season opens.
Yeah. 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 You're exactly right. You look at my
And
traffic, it's exactly that. It's like it's like mid-April, big spike for 2 weeks.
right.
Done.
And then it's
And that's
gone.
it.
And nobody cares about it again for another 340 days. Yep.
Yeah.
It's just weird that way.
Yeah, as far as populations go, I hunt zone 4 in Wisconsin, which is a huge zone, and we actually have good numbers, but like you said, it's highly property specific. I hunt public land. I do have access to a somewhat small private piece. It's a lot of prairie, so it's not a lot of turkey habitat, so to
Right.
speak. And then a lot of the public land around here is around rivers. So what happens is you spook a bird, it flies across the flipping river,
Right.
and there's nothing you
luck.
can do about it. And our public land, we do have larger tracts, so I'm not going to say that we don't have giant tracts that I can hunt. But the ones I tend to focus on because of proximity and convenience and availability is they're smaller, and property lines are an issue. They always, and I'm in essentially a Twin Cities suburb. So the hunting pressure on public land out here isn't insane, but on those smaller pieces, it only takes one or two other people hitting it during the week to really kind of push them on the edges.
Yeah.
And then they're real leery about coming over. And now people are like, turkey are so smart. It's like, no, they're friggin' stupid, but they're really good at one thing, surviving.
Right.
They're not smart. I've seen turkeys do the dumbest crap, but they're scared of everything. And unless you around here, it seems, unless you hit them on that like 3 to 5 day window of like the hottest of hot breeding activity, they're extremely wary. It's hard to catch them
That's
on
what they're
that.
good at. They're wary.
It's hard to catch them too interested in what they hear to ignore what they see. So maybe I'm making it harder than it is, but I think that's the way it goes.
I think that's because you hear we always want to attribute human thoughts to animals regardless of what it is, right? So turkeys are smart. No, they're very, very nervous. So they're good at staying alive, because kind of like a chicken. You know what eats chicken? Everything that a chicken doesn't eat. Same thing for turkey. It's just an oversized chicken. I coming my background with horses, people say horses are smart. Horses are not smart. Horses are trainable. Do not mistake trainability for intelligence. Pigs are smart. Horses are trainable. Very different. Turkeys aren't smart. They're wary. They're nervous. Big difference. Well, I know. So in Indiana this year, and I didn't get the gun patterned early enough. Roman's probably 2 years away from his first turkey season. So that'll be exciting when we get there. But they just legalized 410s in Indiana.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
I've got an old Stevens 94H that
Nice.
I love. It's like an awesome rabbit gun, and it'll be great for him when he gets into turkeys. And part of me was kind of looking at it this spring, like maybe I want to make my life more difficult and try with the 410 since they made it
Because I'm
legal.
so good otherwise.
Right, right. So I punted on that for the time being. But nice to know that I'll have that flexibility because to this point, my sister's been kind of in and out of trying to get a turkey, and she started off because I had a 12 gauge and didn't want to buy a dedicated gun just for her. So at
Right.
10 years old, weighing 95 pounds, she's trying to shoot a 12 gauge, and she grinned and she made it through it, and we patterned guns and she was ready for it. But man, just knowing you got the flexibility of the 410 is
Yeah.
handy. And I know you've got a little different gun thing planned for this year too, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I killed 2 turkeys with a bow, and I've only killed 3 turkeys in my life. The third I killed with my uncle's Winchester. So I had a Winchester pump that I've used for everything from buckshot at deer to snow goose in South Dakota. But I hadn't killed a turkey with it yet until 2 years ago. And it was kind of special. It was my Uncle Richard's gun. So it was my mom's sister's husband. When he passed away, he left it to me / my aunt gave it to me. And I've used it a ton. And it was really cool to be able to take that bird with his gun, because he's part of the reason I fell in love with turkey hunting. He was obsessed with it. And then another uncle, my dad's other sister's husband, Walter, passed away last summer. I didn't get to go home for the funeral or anything because of the COVID issues, and just timing. It was tough. So like I mentioned, I think it was in the last podcast, I drove home to Virginia from Western Wisconsin, and I picked up my Uncle Walter's uh, SX2. So, and it was set up for turkey out of the box. It's got the full choke and everything. So semi-auto, it's the synthetic stock. It's all black, so it's really light. Shoulder's amazing. And I'm looking forward to taking that out. And even if I don't kill anything this year, it'll just be cool to have it with me, because I carried the other one for years before ever killing anything with it. But, just in, I don't know, that's being able to use a tool. When you think about, like, everybody attributes like sentimental value to like olden time tools, like,
Right.
oh, this is so old, it's so cool. And it's like, it's not even that old, but it still has that level of like coolness and value to me,
Right.
simply because it was a family member, much like somebody might have, like, like I same kind of deal. Like, I have my grandma's cast iron skillet. I friggin' love that thing. It's got
Right.
100 years of seasoning on it. Like,
Right.
it's amazing.
Yep.
It's kind of the same deal with the guns that I've inherited from family members. It's like, it's got that seasoning. It's not a non-stick surface, but
Right.
it's been through some stuff. It's seen some things. It was a part of a lot of trips where I wasn't old enough or big enough to carry that. So it was like, it's pretty cool. So that's something I'm excited to have this year. And one, first of all, it'll be a much better turkey gun than the other gun.
Right.
But on
Yeah.
top of that, the sentimental value, my Uncle Walter was obsessed with turkeys, and he had a turkey dog and did fall turkey hunts. Like, he was in it for
Into it
turkey.
for sure.
So it's really cool to be able to have that kind of little piece of our family history in my gun cabinet that's right there over my shoulder. And so yeah, that's my cool thing for this year.
You talk about the sentimentality and the hand-me-downs and thinking that it's always the really old stuff. When I worked outdoor retail and got an opportunity to buy some St. Croix product at pro
Oh yeah.
staff pricing. And when they did it, they would put your name under the epoxy. When you
Oh
ordered your
yeah.
blank, I'm like, I was relatively young at the time, but I had the thought process. Then I'm like, well, I need a fly rod. I want to get a fly rod, just like a panfish fly rod. So I order the St. Croix fly setup, and they put under the epoxy, handcrafted for Trent Marsh. And
Mm-hmm.
even then, I'm like, it's not old, but
Yeah.
how cool is that to at some point be able to give to your kid
Mm-hmm.
a rod like that has dad's name on it, or grandpa or great
Yeah.
grandpa, or whatever the case may be. That's not not just with guns or other stuff like that, but anytime you get that type of, like you said, the cast iron pan, any sentimentality or some connection to especially family from before, like that's an awesome thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to be using a mouth call, right? Like that, because that's your favorite.
No, I suck at it. No, like I think I'm good at it, but here's my theory on why I suck at turkey mouth calls. And it's the same reason you hate the way you sound on a voicemail, or like when you listen to yourself talk.
Yeah, like if you listen to your podcast back.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, who listens to this shit? No. I think the reason I'm so bad at turkey mouth calls is because I sound amazing in my own head, but I think what comes out for the world is something vastly different. So I could be way wrong.
I get what you're saying, but so here's the other thing is there's it's like fishing lures that catch fishermen versus fishing lures that catch fish, right? Turkey calling, and when it was happening, the guy I was hunting with, we kept looking at each other and we were so upset we didn't have a video camera, because when I killed my bird last year, there was one hen and she was mouthy, and it sounded like somebody was standing on her neck with high heel shoes. Like it was the most ridiculous. If you heard the sound and couldn't see the bird, you'd have said, who is this joker in the next woodlot over that doesn't know how to run a mouth call? It was screechy, and it like she was going through puberty and it broke at the wrong times. It was awful. So we think it needs to sound like professional, turkey calling guy. And when I do, like, I mouth call just with the noises I can make, like little purrs and clucks as they get close to the blind. Other than that, I'm doing something different. And if I'm running or gunning, I'll run, without a diaphragm, just enough to sound a little bit like a bird, but it's not. We get too hung up on trying to make it sound like a turkey caller. I think the same thing goes for waterfowl a lot of the time too. I've heard dead ass sounding geese and dead ass sounding ducks, and everybody's like, well, you ain't never going to call bird in sounding like that. You probably will. Probably will.
Well, and that's, I don't know. It just seems like I think I sound good. And whenever I'm using a diaphragm call, birds are super sketchy. They don't want to come in. They hang up outside, but I use a cheap slate call and they're happy. It's not cheap. I won't say that. Right. It's made by a friend of mine and it's a phenomenal call, but it's not cheap isn't the right word. It's not fancy. It's just a slate call. And that's what I've had the most success with. My thing is I hate having to move my hands a lot because I'm running around with a gun and a leafy jacket. I'm not sitting in a blind or anything. So I think you can hear my dog crying in the background, can't you?
I can't.
Okay, good. No. I can hear him through my headphones. I don't know how the mic's not picking this up. But anyway, the slate call is the only thing I can use to seemingly get something in. And then what I'll use is the mouth call to do like light purrs or little sounds.
Yeah.
To just kind of seal the deal and get them that last little bit. But yelping and stuff with a mouth call, I scare them away every time. So I must be worse than whatever that bird you heard was. And I've heard some terrible bird sounds. One time I was hunting with a body when I was bow hunting out on this private land. There was a nasty looking old hen trying to gobble. And it was the weirdest thing. It sounded like somebody was squeezing a cat, like just wringing it out. And I was like, what? And we were both like, I've never heard that. What is that sound? And that's what it was. She finally came into the field when we saw it. And it was a hen kind of puffed up trying to gobble. It was weird, but yeah. So that's why I suck at mouth calls, is because I'm going to blame it on the fact that what comes out is not what I hear inside my own head.
So it's a good transition, and you're going to get frustrated because how I'm going to do this. So on the episodes that, if you listen to the first episode, we kind of wrap up the episode one of two ways. Last episode, parting shots, a drink or a recommendation or something of that nature. And if we don't end it that way, then we're going to do these drafts. So for this one, we're talking turkey hunting gear, and we're assuming, blind gun camo, that's already sorted out. This is, what's in your vest. What are you talking about in terms of what are you going to the woods with? And just to make sure that I get the gear that I want, I'm going to go first since Will did the parting shot in the first one. That means I get to draft first in this episode. And I'm taking a slate call. I've got 3 that I keep in my vest and about a half a dozen strikers. Some custom calls, some big box calls, and a little bit of everything. And but if I'm going turkey hunting, I feel way more comfortable in terms of calls. If I'm drafting a call, if I've never worked that call before and you hand me a friction call, a slate call, I'm going to be able to do something that approximates the sounds that a turkey make, and I'll be able to get close. So now that slate calls are off the table, what are you taking?
I'm staying home because we already talked about how bad I am at mouth calls. So do you get all friction calls or just calls?
Just pot calls? Just pot calls.
Then I guess my choice in that would be, oh man, probably a box call.
Yeah,
that's probably my second level of comfort.
Yeah.
Despite how good I think I am at a mouth call, I think if I can't go with a pot call, I'd use a box call. That's where I'd land on that. I actually have, well, I don't think I have it. It might be at my dad's house. I have a wing bone call that my uncle made, and it sounds, again,
right.
I think I sound good on it, but I've never actually taken it hunting more because I don't ever want to lose it, and I'm real good at losing stuff. So yeah, I'll go box call on that draft.
Okay, so I'll let you go ahead and go first with decoys then. When it comes to decoys, what are you drafting first?
I do have a flex tone on the way, but I'm gonna say Avian X for brand, and I'm sticking with hens. As far as sex of the decoy, I've had a lot of birds around here spook on jakes, but if I have a decent spread of hen decoys, they don't spook as bad. So I'm going to say I'll take Avian X hen decoys on that one. My experience with Avian X is they look phenomenal, and they're not cheap, but they're not crazy expensive. Right. And they kind of hit that sweet spot, and you can find them, like stores carry them. If you're going out to hunt because you changed your mind and you're going to go and you're short a decoy, you can actually go pick it up at a store, and it's, you're not waiting forever or looking for anything special.
Yeah, I just upgraded my decoys this year. I have some flambos. I have the new King Strutter. Same nice. With you. I've kind of had some mixed results. It really depends on the property that I'm on. If I know I've got multiple toms, I like running a Strutter just to try to attract that mature bird that thinks he's running the place. But if it's a marginal property, yeah, I same thing. I go with hens and just try to be a little more passive with it. Even Jake decoys, I've had subordinate toms that wouldn't come in on a Jake decoy. So it really depends. I kind of have to know the farm a little bit, and if I don't know where I'm hunting, I try to leave the big dog behind and really just focus on the hen decoys and going about it that way. But that new King Strutter is super slick. And then the hens, the shady babies, and some of those I just like the flambeau decoys. They're a nice full body and easy to work with and easy to pack around. So I'm a big fan of those.
Yeah, nice.
So then the last thing we're gonna do, and this will be the last category for the episode, is it's a wild card. Any other gear that you're taking to the field? For me, I've got a scent blocker turkey vest that I got a couple years ago on a hunt to Kentucky, and I've experimented with different turkey vests over the year, and it's almost like holsters, right? Like, oh yeah, this is the one. I'm gonna love this one, and then you use it exactly one time. You're like, this son of a bitch is going in the dumpster. I hate it. This sucks. And I love it. It's the pockets are big enough that you can actually get stuff in them, but it doesn't feel like it's just in this duffel bag sitting on your chest. And it's got, the attached seat and all that kind of stuff, but it's super lightweight. The pockets are well designed, well thought out. I love that scent blocker turkey vest. So that's definitely my other thing, that if I've got a flambeau hen decoy, that turkey vest, and some slate calls, I'll give it a try.
Yeah. I think my wild card is something I picked up. I guess it was last year. It's a Browning brand chair. So it's like a short
Oh
chair.
yeah.
I think I told you about it last year
No,
when I
I
got
have
it.
one. Yeah, I
Oh,
have
that's where
one.
you're the one that
Yep,
told me
I'm
to
the one.
get it.
Yep.
I
That
love
would
that thing because
probably be my just off the list thing. Yeah,
yeah,
so
it's like a
so
little
nice.
it's like a little camp chair, but it's got the legs chopped off basically. So
Kind of
it folds
reclines, it
down.
puts you in a shooting position. It's
Yeah.
love that
Well, and you
thing.
can prop it a little and kind of
Yep.
shift around and you can kind of make it work on hillsides even. And
Yep.
that's I get
Love that
fidgety
thing.
because I'm uncomfortable and then I spook the bird I didn't know was there.
Right.
So and I've had various different cushions and stuff. Um I'm drawing a blank on the brand, but there's a turkey vest that has like a stiff back and a seat with little legs
Oh,
that
it's the
pop out.
Tenzing. It's the
Tenzing.
Tenzing pack.
I could see the logo and I couldn't think of the friggin' name. But like I've always wanted to try that one. I've never actually tried it. But I think that could probably work as well. But for me, the cheap Browning chair
No,
that I got off of
that
Amazon for
chair is
like 20
awesome.
bucks, and
Yep.
it's not
Can't
light,
recommend those high enough.
but it's I'm not hiking 15 miles. I'm just running in a mile or so
Right.
at most of my properties. It's less than a mile. Maybe the longest is 3/4. Um, but yeah, I love that thing. It changes when you have to just sit and wait for flipping ever.
Yep.
And if you have to just hop up and chase something down and spot and stalk, you just leave it. That's what
Yep.
I've done
Go back
because
for it.
it's camo and brown. It's
Yep.
not, obviously for turkey
Doesn't
hunting,
stick
it's not
out.
brightly colored. It doesn't stick out. So I've just left it sitting there and haven't had to worry about it. So that would be my wild card choice
So it's a good one.
for the gear draft.
That would probably be my next one. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. If you think we dropped the ball on the gear draft, or you want to let us know what you would draft, again, we're assuming the blind, the gun, and the camo that's already sorted out. So we're looking for your go-to call, your go-to decoy, and then what's your wild card turkey gear. So again,
Yep.
you can rate, review, subscribe anywhere that you're doing podcasts. You can reach out to Will on all platforms. The will2hunt.com, or the will to hunt is the handle, and of course the will2hunt.com. Anything else, Will, and we'll let everybody get out of here.
Right on. Thanks everybody.